We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Everybody's saying, I love us. I love us. And this is the time where we get to welcome each other to this sanctuary. And we had a awakening together, our purpose. We are an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. With an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And for this morning's gathering, what was chosen was core value number 3. We accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. So just a little bit ago, I found the thinking mind rehearsing, looking at what it wanted to say during this gathering. And so I took pen to paper. It was at an Awakening Together retreat going on maybe is 2.5, 3 years ago that I committed to putting pen to paper on a daily basis. And almost without fail, I've done just that. And so this morning, I'm going to use these few words as our invocation to lead us into whatever it is life has in store for us over this next hour. In her wisdom, I see the thinking mind rehearsing for the gathering. How do I know it's the thinking mind? Well, because truth is only here now. Truth is wordless. Truth responds to the present moment without distortion of past programming. I will for that. I surrender into that. And I surrender this moment now into that. I pray that only truth be served here. I pray that that Cindy's programming, whatever is left of it, get out of the way and provide a space that truth may serve, and whatever truth desires is whatever serves us best. And I'm grateful for your presence. Tomorrow we begin true meditation. It's amazing, as I was getting ready to facilitate my first MPP class, and I picked up the book and I immersed in it, how different the words were. That seems to be a big part of what goes on as we say yes to this work. Our programming, our blocks continually get out of the way, and things keep changing, and we can open up these same books and these same teachings over and over and over again, and be as if for the first time. So it seemed that since I'm facilitating my first MPP class tomorrow, and I was asked to lead the gathering today, or I said yes to leading the gathering today, it felt easy to choose the reading from Adyashanti's True Meditation, and to invite Yvonne Unger to do the readings, and she's stepping into this class for the first time. Yvonne, the floor is yours, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to read from this beautiful book. I just love every sentence in it. And today I'm going to read Relinquishing Control and Manipulation. And it says, enlightenment is, in the end, nothing more than the natural state of being. If you strip it of all the complex terminology and all the complex jargon, Enlightenment is simply returning to our natural state of being. A natural state, of course, means a state which is not contrived, a state that requires no effort or discipline to maintain, a state of being which is not enhanced by any sort of manipulation of mind or body. In other words, a state that is completely natural, completely spontaneous. Herein lies one of the reasons why meditation often leads to a dead end. Many meditation techniques, when you look at them closely, are a means of control. As long as the mind is controlling and guiding our experience, it is unlikely to lead us to a natural state. A natural state is one in which we are not controlled by the mind. When the mind is involved in control and manipulation, it can lead to various states of consciousness. You might learn how to still your mind, or you might come into physic powers. You can achieve a lot of things through a style of meditation that is basically technique-oriented or manipulation-oriented. But what you can't do is come upon your own natural and spontaneous way of being. This seems like the most obvious thing in the world. Anyone can tell you that you're not going to come to a natural and spontaneous way of being through inner control and manipulation. Yet, somehow this truth eludes us. It eluded me for years. The fault isn't necessarily in the style of meditation or even in the technique, although the technique we use can have a profound influence. The problem lies in the attitude with which we engage meditation. If our attitude is an attitude of control and manipulation, if we take the approach that we are going to master a discipline, then the attitude gets in the way. It's actually the mind or the ego that is meditating. And of course, when we are talking about enlightenment or spiritual awakening, we are talking about awakening from the mind, awakening from the ego. In what I call true meditation, this tendency of the mind to control and manipulate and be disciplined is abandoned from the very beginning. This letting go of control and manipulation is the foundation of true meditation. As funny as it sounds, the extraordinarily simple beginning to meditation is to let go of control, let go of manipulation. When most people sit down to meditate, the first thing they think is, okay, how do I control my mind? That's what I am calling manipulation. Manipulation is a strong word, but I'm using it to get your attention, to call attention to the fact that when we sit down to meditate and ask ourselves, okay, how am I going to control my mind? How am I going to come to peace? How am I going to come to stillness? What the mind is actually doing is asking, how do I control myself so that I can feel better? And you can learn to control your mind and quiet your mind and your body by applying a controlling technique. For a while, it might feel good. But when we control our minds in order to obtain a certain state of peace or tranquility, it's very much like getting someone to be quiet by taping their mouth shut. You've succeeded in getting that person to be quiet, but you've done it through a very manipulative technique. What good will come of getting that person to be quiet by taping their mouth shut? As soon as you take the tape off, they are going to have a few things to say, aren't they? They're going to have an awful lot to say. I think anybody who has meditated knows the experience of entering into meditation and achieving a certain control of mind, a control of body. It may feel very, very good. The experience may even feel profound. But then you stop meditating, you get up off the cushion or the chair, you stand up, and immediately your mind starts to chatter again. We experience a type of meditative quietness through control, but as soon as we let go of control, the mind is off and running again. Everything reverts to the way it was before. Most meditators are all too familiar with this dilemma. We may achieve a certain state of peace when we are meditating, but when we stop meditating, the peace eludes us once again. Real meditation is not about mastering a technique. It's about letting go of control. This is meditation. Anything else is actually a form of concentration. Meditation and concentration are two different things. Concentration is a discipline. Concentration is a way in which we are actually directing or guiding or controlling our experience. Meditation is letting go of control, letting go of guiding our experience in any way whatsoever. The foundation of true meditation is that we are letting go of control. For a human being, to let go of control is actually an immense thing. It sounds easy to say, just let go of control. But for most human beings, our entire psychological structure, our entire psychological self, our egos, are made up almost entirely of control. To ask a mind or an ego to let go of control, then, is a revolutionary idea. When we let go, even for a moment, certain hidden fears and hesitations arise. What if I let go of control, the mind says, and nothing happens? What if I sit down to meditate, letting everything be as it is, and nothing happens? This is usually why we grab onto some technique or to some discipline, because the mind is afraid that if it lets go of control, nothing will happen. What I'm suggesting in true meditation is that we actually see, that we look at meditation as a way to investigate. True meditation really isn't a new technique so much as it is a way of investigating for yourself, in your own body, in your own mind, upon your own authority, upon the authority of your own experience. What happens when you start to relinquish control and allow everything to be as it is? What happens when you allow your experience to be exactly as it is without trying to change it? Instead of a technique, true meditation is actually a means of investigation. What happens when we actually let go of control and manipulation? Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. So beautifully read. And in attempting to control, I made notes yesterday. Just do this, then this, then this, then this. In order for those notes to be useful, one must read them. Inner wisdom, though, suppose wanted just to loosen the control or the order of our gathering a little bit. And so the music, our first song, is going to happen now after the reading instead of before. A couple of things before we play this song. Number one, all the songs today came into the gathering. I didn't go looking for them. I love them, but I didn't. The thinking mind didn't choose them. As we listen to "Put Your Lights On" by Santana, sit with this understanding that enlightenment is your natural state. There are a couple of lines. The music and the guitar playing is amazing, and it can get loud. So, a couple of lines I just want to point to as we start the music. One, he asked children to leave their lights on, not put their lights on. Kind of wanted you to notice that. There's also this line, and there are chills, and the hair on my arm is standing up. So this is for truth. Truth wants me to remind you that there is this line in this song, that there is a monster under my bed whispering in my ear. And there is an angel with her hand on my head. She says, I have nothing to fear. And in so many ways, you could just sit with those words and recognize that as we undo our addiction to being a me who is not you, our addiction to making everything personal, that monster, that addiction is going to continue to whisper. And we can at any given moment choose to listen to the angel instead, who reminds us over and over and over again, there's nothing to fear. The other line that's in this amazing song, which I'd like to just point you to, God, don't let me lose my nerve, which reminds me, can remind all of us that there's help, that we're not in this battle between the right mind and the wrong mind, or between the addiction to our thinking and the truth. We're not alone. With that, is an angel on our head. We have nothing to fear. So last December, Christmas time in Buffalo, there was a blizzard unlike any other. And both of my children were inconvenienced, yeah. And I felt a lot of pain over that. One daughter missed Christmas in a hotel room. The other one ended up on a cot at work, never being able to make it home. And there was a lot of pain inside. And I read the news report of a 22-year-old girl who left her work, and she never made it home. She got stuck in a snowbank, and she died. She was one of a number of people who died during that blizzard. And I've been committed to this work enough so that I was shocked by this inner response, right? There was a tremendous amount of contraction over my children's inconvenience. And that's all it really was. They were suffering from being inconvenienced. And the story of this girl who was only a few miles from my house, dying in a snowbank in a blizzard because she couldn't see 2 inches in front of her face and nobody found her, was nothing but a story. And so that Christmas week, I had the courage to look inside and ask, what is the difference? And the only difference was that I took my children's suffering personally. I didn't know the girl. That was it. It was the self-referencing I program. It was that this is affecting me. And somehow every part of me knew that there was something that ain't right about that. It just didn't make sense. I'm spending all this time, becoming an Awakening Together minister, teaching here, studying, contemplating, praying, and still this was an obvious, blatant example of where I was holding Cyndi's life apart, and deepened into the commitment for truth, deepened into the commitment. And the way I remember it being stated then was to surrender them to God, right? Like, in what part of me thinks that Cyndi, separate from, can take better care of these 2 beautiful points of awareness than God can, than truth can? It's a painful undertaking, by the way. There's no question that as long as I'm holding on to this belief in a personal self, I'm being hit by the waves instead of flowing with the waves. The commitment was made. And then the guidance is to talk more about these highlights than the specific processes, but we'll see. I'm surrendering all of it. In spring, I was at the dyad retreat, and we've talked about the dyad retreat, and for a week, I deepened into this commitment to use everything for the awakening. So every little comment that was made that would press an inner wound or a feeling or I can't sleep or physical, whatever, every time I felt less than or more than, there was this inner clinging and commitment to using it, to remembering the teaching that says the world is here to help me awaken, not to keep me asleep or in pain. And when I came back from that retreat, I deepened into that commitment, and God loves us so much, right? God is so loving that the lessons began immediately. They began the day I left, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the stories. But first, I want to give the outer view. So there's the commitment. So first, I saw quite clearly the insanity of holding this belief that my story was who I was, in seeing that there was this pain and contraction because my children were inconvenienced and nobody saw we were all apart on Christmas Day. And then there is this deepening into this commitment to use the world. And then in preparing and knowing the date for this this gathering, I chose about 3 weeks ago to start working with Adyashanti's allowing things to be and writing to the end of my understanding. And every day I started writing the question to inner wisdom: what is surrender? What is surrender? What is surrender? And then all of a sudden, about 10 days ago, that question became, and this is, I'm going to read this, it's only a few lines. God, what is pain? I didn't even know where the question from. So at that point, I wasn't even noticing any pain, really. But I said, God, what is pain? The response quite clearly was stuck energy. It's not personal. There's nothing personal. It's just stuck energy. And there's no difference between physical, mental, or emotional pain. It's all simply some type of constriction in the Shakti, in the flow. It's a period. And it's not personal. And there are also no degrees. I am a student of A Course in Miracles, so I hear that. There's no degree in miracles, either we're all in or there's some degree of believing in the 10,000 things. There's no degree if we're experiencing some level of pain, mental, physical, or emotional, then it is simply a constriction in the flow. And there's no better or worse than, and it's not personal. It's become my new spiritual aspiration, holding those words, it's not personal, in place. And so then I asked, so what is surrender? It is letting go of the thought that it is personal. That was the definition I was given to use. Now, all words are just words, so they're just pointers. But what I was told by inner wisdom, that for now, it's useful for me to consider surrender as being letting go whenever I see I'm making something personal, a me and another. And then I asked, that constriction that was just felt, it's nothing other than the attachment to it being personal. And what is attachment? Now I'm in a loop, right? It is simply a constriction in the Shakti. It's not personal. So a constriction, feeling separate from, it's all just this belief that what I am is not what I see. And so that deepens in the commitment, especially to get to this gathering, deepened into the commitment that no matter what happened in my world, it wasn't personal. I also was reminded over and over and over again that there's no cause and form. It's really the same type of thing, personal and form. And David Hawkins said it in a transcript that we read in a gathering I ran, and I read it in the Supreme Yoga recently. When a crow lands on a tree and the coconut falls, the coconut falling has nothing to do with the crow landing. And so no matter what's going on in my world, there is no cause and form. I was told to hold that into place. It's not personal. There is no cause and form. And the third thing to hold on to like a lifeline is God's love. And it's all well, right? So no matter what is going on in my world, I can choose to know that all is well, that it's not personal, that the world is providing me opportunities to know myself. And now to add to that, enlightenment is our natural state, right? We've been hearing these teachings over and over and over again. There was an inner invitation to put them to the test. And additionally, so many people in the last weeks and months, it lit up inside of me, have said some version. It was today. I heard a friend say it to me today. This is all great, but it doesn't help me get a job. This is great, but I'm still human. This is great, but I still have health issues, etc., etc., etc. So I'm going to take the next little bit, the next 10 minutes or so, to tell you some stories over the last 6 months of how putting this to the test has affected Cindy's life in the world, right? And just the highlights. This body is actually feeling a little dizzy now. I love catching the resistance. So many here have heard bits and pieces of this story. So just the highlights. I get off the plane after a 14-hour trip or some outrageous number of trip to a notice saying that my balcony's been condemned. And it's since there's lots of stories, and I cried off and on over these last 6 months about the hummingbirds that I won't be able to feed, about the rocking chairs, about all these other things. But I kept using these techniques. So the balcony's been sealed, the door is closed, and somehow, without any thinking at all, but bringing all thinking to this space, the hummingbird feeder is now closer to me, and it's in the tree, and the hummingbirds are flocking to this feeder like there's no tomorrow. At some point in this experience, the thought arose that, if I can't use the balcony, I'm going to get a hammock, and I'm going to bring a hammock outside. And I ordered what I thought was a personal portable hammock, and the hammock came, and I put it together, and I realized that it was way too heavy to make it a portable hammock. And somehow within a day of that, I, on my own, with the help of spirit, figured out how to remove my ex-boyfriend's ex-wife's couch from my living room. Move a brand new couch that is very comfortable from a room that's not used into the front room. And the hammock is now in my meditation/office. And this apartment feels open and alive and vibrant and happy in a way that I would never have predicted. It's a much happier place. And it didn't just happen, by the way. There were, and many of you have heard the bits and pieces. There are these bits and pieces over those 6 months where Cyndi cried, where Cyndi was contracted, where I sat with inner wisdom and was told just to watch the thinking. You get to watch the thinking, and then this space opens up, and the Shakti just flows, and the energy shifts my world. So my entire living space is not what I would have imagined, and it's very peaceful, and I'm living in it in the moment. So that's story number one. Story number two, there was something work financially related. I'm not going to go into details, but that created this crash in this space. I knew what was happening was wrong, that it wouldn't work. And for a little while it overtook me, and I was the thinking mind. And yet I practice every day. I'm in this space every day. And I was very careful about how I shared my distress, sharing my distress when it was alive, really with just friends that were also on this path. And then finally I sat down with inner wisdom, right? And I said, I'm giving this to you. The thing was, and inner wisdom said, mind watching 30 minutes. That's been its, that was its thing, right? And it was like pulling teeth for a while. I got to tell you that the body felt inflamed. The thinking was nonstop. The energy was off. I knew absolutely that there was a problem and that there was no solution. And inner wisdom, I felt inner wisdom around me, sort of squeezing the sense of it being personal. And I just kept saying, that's just another thought. That's just another story. And after about the 30 minutes of that, a whole new idea just dropped. Just dropped. And in 10 minutes, it was all down on a piece of paper. Everyone involved said yes, and it's being implemented. Nothing to do with Cyndi. And at that moment, I fully recognized that Cyndi can thrive really well without the thinking mind. Extraordinary. Cyndi does not need the thinking mind to thrive. And that's also a great thing, because until this kind of experience, I thought Cyndi was the thinking mind and I was killing Cyndi, right? There was this, the thinking mind was using that as one of its ego preservation strategies to say, you're killing yourself. But I recognize Cindy's just the label. I can call myself Cyndi all I want. This being who I am, who I adore, who's in this flow, who Spirit is using to speak these messages, doesn't need a thinking mind to thrive. There's a period. So that's story number two. Number three was really cool because it was happening Thursday. So it was a short one. It was happening Thursday while I was with the Gentle Healing Year 3 group, which it was just so cool. One of my children was in crisis. She was in crisis, right? And she called just about an hour before Gentle Healing was going to start. Cyndi, the mother, attempted to resolve the problem. It's 10 minutes before Gentle Healing begins. The problem was not resolved. I stepped into the Gentle Healing Year 3, and it's all recorded, so it's cool if I ever want to listen to it again. Forgiveness lets us know that minds are joined, right? That's a Course in Miracles teaching. There was a part of me through a certain percentage of Gentle Healing on 3 that was distracted, right? I kept, even though I heard everything that was being shared and I was there, confession will tell you that the thinking mind kept telling me that it was important to be concerned about my daughter and her crisis, and kept attempting to pull me out. And instead, I talked about it in the group, in the moment. And it was part of this new contemplation inquiry that came through these weeks of doing this work. And instead of asking, who am I, or asking what is aware of this, and a whole bunch of these other inquiries, the question became, who is not aware? Who is not aware of this particular problem? And that, and the final story that I'm going to talk about in the moment, the inquiry came from there, because it was who was not aware of these body symptoms. And it works for this space because, again, I have spent so much time with A Course in Miracles, and the Course in Miracles teaches us that the Father is not aware of your problems, right? God doesn't know the individual character and the individual character's belief in separation. The truth doesn't know separation. Truth simply is. And so singing into, and even while I was sharing this in the Gentle Healing group on Thursday, recognizing that it's not personal. So as I'm in this inquiry, even while I was with the group and then sharing it out loud, who is not aware of this problem? A couple of things happen, right? The body is still rattling around like there's an issue. The thinking mind is still thinking, but it's in the distance. You know, God, there's this space that says God speaks to us in a quiet whisper. That inquiry made the thinking mind the quiet whisper, chattering in the background. And there's this spaciousness that's just still. And it became more in focus. And then I almost don't want to tell you this, because we're not doing this work to fix the world, right? And yet, while I'm teaching this, while I'm sharing this, a text comes through and the problem it just went away. Okay? And that makes sense too, right? Because again, the world is here to help us awaken. It's not to prove to us that we're weak or contracted or separate. When we change our mind and we reverse it all and we choose to use everything, let it, I was listening to Michael Singer too, all these beautiful voices in my set. He says, let it all hit your stuff. Let it hit your stuff and let your stuff come up, and then just relax and release and relax and release. And that's what was happening with my daughter on Thursday. So that's my relationship. That's a relationship story. It's a work in the world story. It's a life situation story. So this last story happened after, I'm writing, what is surrender? What is surrender? What is surrender? All of a sudden the pen writes without my conscious awareness, what is pain? A couple days after that, the physical pain started with a bang. And not only was it intense physical pain, it was facial pain, right? And it was shooting pain, and it was wearing a mask, pulling at you physical pain. It was hitting all sorts of trauma, because facial pain is part of Cindy's past story, 2 bouts of Bell's palsy that colored a big part of my life for years and years apart. And the thinking mind wanted to tell me this was the exception. And this was proving that the teachings were false. And yeah, when the pain goes away, you could do your work again. But right now, you have to fix this pain. And somehow, and there's no cause and form, so I don't know, the courage and the decision to use everything to awaken was stronger than that. And so I continually sat with the physical pain. Now, the physical pain was facial pain. It brought up all the trauma. It brought up, the Bell's palsy was happening at the same time as a bankruptcy, a horrible divorce, a foreclosure or almost a foreclosure, trauma, drama, like the life story was insane then. And the mind's telling me the irritability that I was feeling emotionally and mentally was because of the physical pain. The fatigue I was feeling was because of the physical pain. And I continually sat and said, inner wisdom, I'm going to trust you. Inner wisdom, I'm going to trust you. And at some point I recognized that the irritability and the stories and the memories that were coming up and the physical pain were all part of this sort of healing experience. So many of the teachings say that when we don't fully process whatever's going on at the time, it gets stored in our programming, whether you want to call it our tissues, our neural pathways. It's stored in everything we think we are. And we don't have to, but I was feeling it on the way out. I didn't experience it as if that was it, but I trusted that was it. I trusted that was it. And hour after hour and sleepless hours and different things, I sat with pen and paper and said, inner wisdom, this friggin' hurts. And I am irritable and I don't want to do this anymore. And it really hurts and I can't sleep. And there were moments with the pain was so intense that taking a step was shooting pain up into my jaw and in my face. And yet there was this peace. And inner wisdom would say something like 15 minutes mind watching, do your yoga now, or thank you for being here. And after a while, I really, really saw that this was just, it felt like congestion. That's all it is. It was like back flushing a pool or cleaning your gutters. And it became, the more I trusted everything that we study here and put it, I don't even want to call it putting it to the test. I was just doing it. You get to a certain point where you recognize the concepts are concepts and you could talk about them all you want, right? You could talk about them all you want. But if you're still not utilizing them when the quote unquote hits the fan, then you're just, they're becoming more food for the personality, for making it personal, for, yep, I'm a great teacher of this stuff, and yet I got to take a whole bunch of drugs later to get through the night. Putting it to the test. After a while, I realized, hey, there's some heaviness in the shooting pain and the spasms that had been part of the left side of the body for the last 12, 13 years were gone. When I lay flat on my back, my entire back now hits the ground. My body is changing, relaxing, opening, and the energy is flowing. It's not personal. It's not personal. And more I was just moving into the inquiry, what is not aware of body sensations? And from that space, again, this peaceful presence is there, and I'm aware of the body sensations, almost like I was aware of the story of this girl last December who died in the blizzard. They're not personal. They're not personal. They're just a block to in the Shakti, but they're not my block. They're just a block. And the pain has been easing at almost a rapid rate. There's this feeling like there's a mask here. And yet there's a balance in the energy flow. The shooting pains are all gone. A couple of Tylenol every 6 or 7 hours. And the yoga, it's all just gorgeous. So, yeah, we don't need the thinking minds to thrive. We don't need the thinking minds to tell us what to do with physical illness. We don't need, we are the Shakti. We are the flow. We are the dance. And just being part of Awakening Together means that we're on the gentle path because we're doing it together. The other thing, I said it out loud, there's what I've discovered over these weeks and months of really committing to this work is that there are a lot of voices in this head, right? But mostly they're not these voices that tell me that I'm less than, or that I'm bad, or that, I'll never get it. Those voices are still, like, the contraction's still there, but the voices I hear in my head, especially in those moments where the problems feel real, or voices like Jacqueline telling me there's only one thing going on here, right? Or Connie's column A or column B, or Michael Singer telling me to use everything, let it hit your stuff, Regina reminding me to step out of the loop, or 100 other things that Regina has reminded me to do. It's these voices of my friends here, and their stories, and recognizing that everybody's story, either everybody's story is my story, or none of these are stories. Either everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle, and we're awakening together. I'm so grateful. This next song came to me, and I'm really, really, really grateful for it too. Let it remind you that there's nothing you can do. You might as well relax and enjoy the ride. The earth is blue. Sina? So, Awakening Together is a church. If you check in your heart and wish to donate, those donations go a long way. Sina's going to post the link if she hasn't already. Or you could use that beautiful little barcode that I see in the center of my screen. All I have left to say is I love us.
Been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.